Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I think other people write good love songs, and I always think that I get it wrong because I don't write about the positive in love. It's my mission to write a real love song, which is one that's not the, oh, it's all gone tits up and it's, you know, it's it's a disaster movie.
Welcome back to Working. I'm your host, June Thomas.
And I'm your other host, Isaac Butler.
Isaac, it is always so nice to chat with you. But tell me, whose voice did we hear at the top of the show?
That was the mellifluous voice of Tracyanne Campbell, the lead singer and main songwriter of storied indie rock band Camera Obscura.
And why did you want to speak with Tracyanne right now?
Well, I would talk to Tracyanne Campbell anytime. I mean, Camera Obscura's breakthrough album, Let's Get Out of This Country, it's extremely important to me. It kind of soundtracked the first few years of my relationship with my wife. Aww. And, you know, that's one of those albums you can put on just kind of any day and you're like, so satisfying. But I'm fairly sure she wanted to talk to me because the band has a new album out called Look to the East, Look to the West. They've been on hiatus for a long time. One of the original band members died and the band kind of disbanded afterwards. And as we discussed in the course of the episode, they reformed. They have a new member. They're reinvigorated, and the album kind of reflects that.
Wow, I cannot wait to hear this conversation. But first, I need you to tell me, is there going to be something extra for Slate Plus members? If so, what will they hear?
So if you are a fan of Camera Obscura or you read their reviews ever or anything like that, you will notice this word come up a lot. Twee. Twee this. Twee that. Twee, 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 twee. And so I thought, why not just ask her what she thinks of this word that people always use when describing her band?
Oh my goodness. That is one for the ages. And if you're a member of Slate Plus, you will hear that at the end of the episode. If you aren't, it is just incredibly easy to join. As a Slate Plus member, you'll get to hear extra segments on this show and others, such as the Culture Gab Fest. You will get bonus episodes of podcasts like Slow Burn and Amicus, which is just on an amazing tear right now. And of course, you'll never hit a paywall on slate.com. The mothership site. To learn more, go to slate.com/workingplus. Okay, let's hear Isaac's conversation with Tracyanne Campbell.
This episode of Working is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Hey listeners, whether you love listening to in-depth interviews and discussions of craft and the creative process or whatever the heck it is all the other podcasts you listen to do, you call the shots with what's in your podcast queue, right? And guess what? Now you can call the shots on your auto insurance too. Enter the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. The Name Your Price tool puts you in charge of your auto insurance by working just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, then they'll show you a variety of coverages that fit within your budget, giving you options. Now that's something you'll want to press play on. It's easy to start a quote, and you'll be able to choose the best option for you fast. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive Insurance. Quote today at Progressive.com to try the Name Your Price tool for yourself and join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Tracyanne Campbell, thank you for joining us this week on Working.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We're all very excited to have you, and I should just say in advance, a couple of our questions were written by our producer, Kevin Bendis, because he just loves the band as I do, and I was like, hey, I'm sure you have some questions. You play music, so I need to share credit with him for some of these.
Well, I hope I've got the answers.
I'm sure you do. Let's just start with the like really basic question of, where are you in your creative process right now? Are you writing songs? Are you practicing with the band? Are you taking time off? What's going on with you right now?
I'm not actually writing songs at the minute. I mean, it's an ongoing process for me. I've got a lot of stuff on at the minute, sort of personal stuff going on, and I'm practicing with the band for the tours. So I think once I start going on tour and, I start getting into the mindset of working again, it'll pick up. I do have lots of songs sitting about that I've sort of worked on the past few years that need finishing. But it's just like kids and things get in the road,
Do you find during these busy times that, like those sorts of creative ideas just don't come, or that when they come, you have to just like write a note to yourself and be like, I'll get to that later. I don't know, a song about a great sandwich I had. I'll write that. I'll write that some other time.
I would say that I sort of consistently think about writing songs, and if an idea comes, I'll record it or I'll write down a lyric, but that's not really been happening lately, which I think is fine because I had quite a good creative period there that, made the record and continued to write songs for quite a while, and I've got a load. I just got to get some space to get back to them. Right.
During those periods of time when you do have the space to write songs, are you someone who like dedicates specific time to songwriting, or does it sort of happen more impulsively when an idea comes to you?
Well, I would say the usual would be that I would just wait for something to come to me impulsively and spontaneously, sort of wait for them to fly in through the window kind of thing. But having said that, I think like sometimes when your life's a bit busy with other things like kids or whatever, you do sometimes have to find specific time. So the past few years I was dedicating specific time to, I was going to a studio in the Borders, the Scottish Borders, not a music studio, just a studio, a place where this great couple, she's an artist and he's an architect, and they've built this wonderful space at the back of their house for creatives to go and listen to the grouse making a racket at night time and look at the hills and the sheep, and the space is just really, it's just got enough stuff in it, to clear your head. And I was going there with Donna, who plays keyboards in the group. We were going there to dedicate writing time, get away from families, and I did not expect that to work, but it did work for me. And it's so satisfying when you go there thinking, we don't really feel like it, we're not really in the mood or whatever. And the woman, Pat, who I was telling you runs it, or who owns it, she's an artist, and she's always got great advice, she's always just like, well, just sit down and make yourself a cup of tea and just look out the window for a few hours, if it comes, it comes. And we've done that, and we might have nothing in the morning, then go out for a walk and then come back and, something will just trigger it. And we've worked like that quite well together, I would say. And that's so satisfying,
Yeah, totally. Donna is also a relatively new member of the band, if I recall correctly. What was it like to kind of open up your songwriting process to a new person?
I mean, I think it's the sort of thing that if you told me I was going to do that, I would have said that's not going to happen, before she joined. But I think her and I, we just hit it off creatively and on a personal level as well. And I think that pretty soon you realise that you're with somebody who can sort of match your songwriting and your creativity. And I think maybe when I was younger I was less open to that and a bit more precious about, doing everything myself. And I just don't really feel like that anymore. I feel if you can learn something from somebody, or you could admit that they sometimes have a better idea than you, that's all right. It's kind of good. It's kind of liberating in a way.
Yeah. As I get older, I do find it easier to admit that other people have better ideas than me sometimes in a way that was not true when I was in my 20s.
I know. I just think that if you're pushing 50 and you're still going, no, I want it to be my idea, then something's not quite right, is it? Or if you've got kids and you're still at that it's not good.
Yes, once you have a child, you really learn like just because something was your idea does not mean you're gonna get it.
Exactly, and they've got the good ideas now anyway, and they don't mind telling you.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. When a song first kind of comes to you out of the ether, I don't know how you conceptualize it. Does it come to you generally melodically first, or as a scrap of lyrics, or an idea? You know, where does it tend to begin?
It depends. I was talking about this specific songwriting experience yesterday with somebody I was doing an interview with, and we talked a bit about the song Baby Huey, Hard Times, on the record. And I was saying, I wrote that on the plane on the way back from the Boaty Weekender. And I was on the plane and I was just reflecting and thinking about what had just happened, you know, what kind of weekend we'd had. And I was feeling quite emotional. And I think that helps with me anyway, if I'm feeling a bit pent up or something.
I got on the plane, I visualized your name, and so the tears came over and over again.
It was an emotional time, you know, playing those gigs for the first time in a long time, and there was lots going on in the boat, little mini worlds everywhere, and I just had a melody and some lyrics.
Amazing. And the Boaty Weekender, for our listeners who aren't familiar, that is the Bell and Sebastian cruise that I think was a lot of Glaswegian bands and Teenage Fan Club and Yo La Tango, right? But and you all kind
Yo
of
La Tango.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And you all reunited for that concert, right? The band had sort of been on indefinite hiatus.
Yeah,
and
we did. We hadn't played shows. We had not been planning to do anything really. Remember, and they asked us to do that. I was playing, I don't know if you know, but I made a record with Danny Coughlin from Crybaby, and they had asked Dan and I to do it. And there was a kind of slightly awkward suggestion that maybe would I be up for doing some Camera Obscura songs, which I was not up for doing. And I think I'd sort of said, well, if you want the band to play, then ask the band to play, you know. And I wasn't expecting it, but we decided to do that, and we started rehearsing. That was really the catalyst for all of this, for this album, for all these songs, pretty much.
And Baby Huey joins a sort of a subgroup of your songs, like Dory Previn or Lloyd, I'm Ready to Be Heartbroken, that are referencing other musical acts, other songwriters. What is it about that kind of move into the songwriting that's so appealing to you?
I have to say, and I don't really mind admitting it, but I kind of stole that sort of songwriting style from Lloyd Cole, because he references books and films and actresses and all sorts of things, and I always was super impressed by that when I was younger and listening to his lyrics.
I lean over on the bookcase if you really want to get straight. Read Norman Mailer or get a new tailor.
And I guess I thought, well, you know, I may as well, if I'm thinking about these things, or I'm inspired by these people, or they're making me think of a creative thing to say, or have a beautiful thought or whatever, then I may as well write it.
Right. And in your lyrics, you know, humor is also, I think, really a thing that sets your lyrics apart from a lot of other lyricists. You know, even on the new album song, like We're Gonna Make It in a Man's World, or, you know, your first album is called Underachievers, Please Try Harder, which has you know, there's a real sense of humor to it. How conscious of that kind of tone of voice are you in writing lyrics? Is it just, you know, you have a sense of humor and it comes out in your writing, or do you think like, I'm writing a Camera Obscura song, where are the jokes?
I think it's just, I don't think about writing jokes or being funny, or I think it's probably the most, I mean, I'm Scottish, but I'm British as well, and it's probably the most British thing about me. You know, we do have a sort of tendency to make fun of ourselves and play it down a bit, and, you know, see the humour in dark or sad or difficult things. But I don't consciously try to write in any way. I actually think I'm surprised sometimes when people say that that the lyrics are quite funny or something. I'm like, oh, okay, sure.
Right. Once it comes time to like share the song with the band, like what state is the song in at that point? In what form does it exist? Are you just kind of singing it to them? Is there a demo,
Well, usually, I mean, back in the day, I'd maybe just come in and have to just, brass neck it and sort of get my guitar out and sing the song in front of them and hope that they'd join in. Latterly, certainly with this record, I made little demos on my iPad, so I just sat on my own. I mean, I think the thing is, some of the songs, not many of them, some of the lyrics and stuff were written already, or I might have had a melody here and there, and I thought I'll put them all on, I'll just record all of them. Some might not have had every lyric written, or, and the structure certainly was never set in stone, because that's something that the band does generally with me for most of the songs. And generally the demos, all my demos tend to be just me and an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar, and they all sound quite miserable and slow, to be honest with you, even the ones that end up fast. And they're not fancy, and sometimes my guitar's out of tune, or I've pressed some weird button on the iPad and it makes it sound kind of wonky. In fact, there was a sort of natural kind of wonkiness that on some of those demos that I really liked, but I would never be able to recreate it. I don't know what I was doing. I'm not very technical.
So the kind of arrangement of the song happens within the band. You're not coming in and being like, the bass line should be this and the organ should be this, or...
No, not at all. I mean, certainly not this record. Maybe back in the day I would be definitely a bit more controlling, or naturally felt like I was feeling very creative, and I would wake up in the night with like guitar lines and, try to sing it into my phone. And if I have those ideas, I'll always tell people, could you do something like this, or would you do something like that? But this time, very much less of that, actually. Much less of me specifying or asking for specific melodies to be played, just maybe the odd thing here and there, but I actually didn't play anything much on the record at all. I think I maybe played guitar in like one or two songs. So I didn't really, it's a strange thing, but it's actually only my voice that's on that record. I'm not really playing with a band.
How did that feel?
I didn't like it, to be honest. I'll be honest. I did not really like it. But Yari, the producer, wanted me to sing. Maybe thinks I'm a rubbish guitar player, I'm not sure.
It's interesting because, one thing that's sort of underlying all of this is collaboration, which we talk about a lot on this show. Yeah. You've collaborated with a lot of different artists and producers and things like that. What to you makes for a good collaboration, even beyond, the skill sets of the people you're working with?
I think it's just being open and honest and trusting people, being able to trust them and not feeling inferior. Or I think I would have talked myself out of a lot of things in the past that I would not do now. I'd still do get the sort of the fear when I'm asked to do a thing with somebody, whether it's sing on the record or, whatever, write a song with them, or I still think, I get that sort of imposter syndrome thing. But when I'm feeling sort of lucid and confident enough, at the end of the day, we're all just creating something. It's just a song. There's no right and there's no wrong, really. Nobody's really better at doing it than anybody else. So I think it's just getting the sense that the person you're working with is your equal or something, and that they treat you in that way as well.
It's funny you mentioned imposter syndrome, because I think, most people would think, by the time you're at the level you're at, you've released several critically beloved albums.
It doesn't go
that
away.
Have charted. You've toured all over the world. You're in your 40s now. Et cetera, and so forth. That at some point it would go away, but it's sort of like you just have to learn how to deal with it as opposed to get rid of it. Yeah,
you just learn how to deal with it. It doesn't really go away. It's, even when I was writing these songs, I was thinking, is this just a load of crap? Like, what is this? Is this, what are people going to think about this? I think it was the time as well, and also I've been sort of out of the game a little bit, and I think that's what a lot of the record is about. It is about me sort of going, are you any good? are you good enough? You know, what is it you do again? Who are you? What are you doing here on this planet? What is it you're doing, you know? So there's always that kind of feeling, oh God, I've got to write songs. How'd you do that again? But it's easy once you get started.
We'll be back with more of Isaac's conversation with Tracyanne Campbell. We've all been there. You have a question about your credit card. You call the number for help and can't get a hold of anyone. If only you had a Discover card. With 24/7 US-based live customer service from Discover, everyone has the option to talk to a real person anytime, day or night. Yep, you heard that right, a real person. Get the customer service you deserve with Discover. Limitations apply. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Hi, this is Dahlia Lithwick, host of Slate's legal podcast, Amicus. If you're listening to this show, you might be interested in Amicus's live show that we're hosting in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, May the 14th. My colleague, Mark Joseph Stern, and I will be talking to some amazing guests, including Sherilyn Ifill and a sitting state Supreme Court justice, all about how originalism, a relatively recently invented way of interpreting the Constitution, has taken over the Supreme Court and radically reshaped the law. It's been doctrinal rocket fuel for the conservative legal movement and facilitated the rolling back of abortion rights, the expansion of gun rights, and the obliteration of the separation of church and state. And as another wildly consequential Supreme Court term careers to its end, the court's originalists are on a tear. But there's something you can do about it, and we hope you'll join us in D.C. on May 14th to explore the possible pathways out of the current situation. Go to slate.com/Amicus Live for tickets.
Listeners, we want to hear from you. Every other Thursday on Working Overtime, we offer advice about creative dilemmas. Sometimes we answer listener questions, and we would love to have more of those listener questions. So please tell us your challenges. Tell us something you figured out that's working really well for you. Just please talk to us. You can drop us a line at working@slate.com. You can also send a voice memo to that address, or give us a ring at 304-933-WORK and leave us an old-fashioned voicemail. And if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Working wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's return to Isaac's conversation with Tracyanne Campbell.
You have written, I think, literally dozens of love songs. And maybe it's because I just saw Magnetic Fields perform 69 love songs. But I'm wondering, from a craft perspective, like, to you, what makes for a really good love song? Like, what are the ingredients in a great love song?
See, I think other people write good love songs. I think Carole King writes good love songs. And I always think that I get it wrong because I don't write about the positive in love. You know, it's my mission to write a real love song, which is one that's optimistic about the optimism of love, and not the, oh, it's all gone tits up and it's, you know, it's it's a disaster movie. So I don't know that I've actually done that. You know, I've written about love, I've written about being in love, I've written about the pain of being in love, I've written about falling out of love. I do have a personal sort of bet with myself to write an actual love song.
That's fascinating. Scotland, and especially Glasgow, of course, have a very storied music scene. You know, everyone from you to Belle and Sebastian, Orange Juice, Mogwai, et cetera, and so forth. Do you think of yourself as being like part of a lineage? Is that something that's important to you, or to thinking about the band and the sound?
I think we've got a great music scene, and it's one to be proud of, and it's an inspiring one. And I think that I might not have been able to see it in the past, but I can see now that, you know, without all those groups, without the grassroots sort of venues and promoters and the love for music in the city, we wouldn't really have stood a chance, you know. We wanted to be like Teenage Fan Club and the Vaselines and the Pastels, and we wanted to be like the Bells and the Cocktail Twins and Orange Juice and Jesus and Mary Chain, all those bands, you know.
Do you experience the thing where like younger bands in that scene now look up to you in some way, in the same way that you used to look up to, I don't know, Edwyn Collins or whatever?
I mean, I'm always amazed when somebody says, "Oh, I love your band." I'm just like, really? You know, so I'm always flattered that that could be the case. And then I feel old.
It's the downside to being admired. You're like, oh, wait, I'm now old enough to be admired. Oh, shit.
I'm old enough to be admired. Yeah.
You know, one thing that I really love about your body of work is the way the sound on each of the albums has kind of transformed a bit. You know, I think about like the opening of Lloyd, I'm Ready to Be Heartbroken, with that organ coming in, you know, and the strings on that song. They're announcing this is a really different sound from Underachievers, or maybe a development of that sound.
Definitely.
And then by the time we get to Desire Lines with the mixing of the drums and the kind of soft horn on that first track, and then in the new one there's even synthesizer and Nashville sound, and your husband Tim Davidson plays pedal steel and all this great stuff. I'm curious how you thought about each of those evolutions and what kind of made them develop in that way.
I mean, I think that, you know, all along we were just kind of getting in a room together and trying to make music we liked the sound of. I was always just trying to sort of take influence from music that I loved. Nothing really much has changed, except I think we're just a bit better at it now. And I think, like, definitely the first two albums were very self-produced and we didn't have a clue what we were doing, you know. That first record, that's the first bunch of songs I ever wrote in my life, and we just didn't know what we were doing. You know, we were super naive about it. We weren't cocky. We weren't the kind of band that were trying to invent the wheel, or, you know, I mean, I'm not putting us down, but there was nothing. We weren't creating a new sound. You know, we weren't paving the way. You know, we were just playing in a very sort of unpretentious way, but trying to make the songs the best that they could be. And I think, you know, when Yari came on the scene and we made Let's Get Out of This Country, we surprised ourselves. You know, I think we were probably lacking a bit of confidence, and we knew we wanted something, we were searching for something, but we didn't know what it was. And I think he just managed to tap into something that was there already, that we had something. You know, I can't sort of say on air some of the things that how he described us, but, you know, he would say like we were stripy t-shirted Belle and Sebastian wannabes, that kind of thing. And I was going, no, we're not. That is not what we're trying to be like. We might be doing that, but we're trying to sound like, I don't know, you know, Chris Montez, or I'm trying to write songs that are songs that Petula Clark would sing, or, you know, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so I think what I'm saying is Yari's production on that record and in My Modern Career was so crucial to us developing and maturing as a group and creating our sound. You know, that sound was the sound that we made in that studio, all playing live. And I couldn't believe when it was played back to me that that's what we sounded like. And I think for this record, I think it sounds different again, like you say, with the synthesizers and keyboards, and that's having another member who knows how to use a keyboard in a certain way and who is not scared to be creative with it.
Live, do you still play songs from those first two albums, from Underachievers or Hi-Fi?
I think there's a couple of songs in there, yeah. Not many, but there's there's a few. I was actually just sitting before this trying to do some set lists for rehearsing, because we're trying to rehearse too many songs at the minute, and it's a bit confusing for everybody. And I'm trying to, it's difficult to know what to play, but there's a little sprinkle of one or two songs. But it's mainly Let's Get This Country My Modern Career, I suppose.
Got it.
Heavy.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, what's it like to revisit, as you said, the first few songs you ever wrote, or what?
Absolute cringe. It's cringy. It's like, it's torturous. Sometimes when I'm singing some of the lyrics, I'm like, oh my God, kill me now, But
right.
You can't have that attitude to it. I do hear the sort of innocence in them, I am sort of singing about a different person or a different person's perspective, so sometimes I don't love it, but I can't afford to let my ego get in the way of it. I'm not going to get on a stage and say, we're just going to play songs from the new album and stuff you lot. It's not really about us. When you get on a stage, you're playing for an audience, you're playing for a crowd who have bought a ticket to come and see you, and you know that they want certain songs. It's not about what you want, really. Well, for us anyway, We're always trying to please, what do they want? To the point where we obsessively, sort of counted all the sort of requests for songs, and we actually ordered them to see what was coming up number one. And right, so we've got to play that. 1 to 7 or something. We must play those songs because.
You mean like that people shout out from the audience?
We asked on Facebook or something.
Oh, got it. Yeah, of course,
social media. Right, and actually, generally, when we play a gig, if somebody's shouting out for a song and we can busk it, we'll do it. We'll try to do that. May as well.
Right. One of the things that Kevin and I were talking about this earlier is, these incredible kind of arrangements. Often a kind of early 60s wall of sound orchestration, string instruments, organs, guitars, You don't bring all of that with you, I assume. I don't think on the road you have like a 4-piece string section playing with you and stuff. So what's it like to reapproach those songs and kind of rejigger them for the live context?
I think you just have to be sort of take it easy on yourself. I think that I can see the beauty in seeing a band playing live and them sounding completely different from what the record does. I prefer it, actually. We're not looking for perfection. You can only use what you've got. So we've never done that. I mean, we do have trumpet and we do have percussion. I could never really feel comfortable doing without those things. But in terms of strings, and we've maybe played the odd gig where we've had players. I don't know, you just pick out what the important melodies are and you just make it a bit more rock and roll or something. I don't know. My kid would cringe at me saying that. He'd be like, don't say that, you're so uncool.
It's interesting because, living in New York City, I do sometimes get to see the band actually, they'll hire a string section for that gig or whatever. I saw, I don't know, like Janelle Monáe at the Apollo, and she had 3 horn players and 4 string players, or Bell and Sebastian at Prospect Park Band Shell, and they had a string section.
We can't afford that, to be frank with you.
Right, right. It does drive it does make the price of putting on the concert insane. It seems to me
it's already insane, so I don't want to start moaning about that. It's. I think keeping things simple, especially for us, because we're not constantly on the road. We're doing this for the first time properly in a long time, 8 years or something, 9 years, something like that. We've not really, as a band, been on tour for a long time. We've played about 3 shows in the last 9 years or something,
Right.
So I think that was the whole idea with this record as well. That's why we didn't go for big production in that sense. I think we wanted something intimate and something that was just about us, for us, and about us, and that also, well, what can we do just ourselves? Let's be self-efficient.
Obviously the reason why the band went on hiatus is because of the passing away of Carrie Lander, who was one of the members of the band and one of your closest friends. So it sounds to a certain extent like you almost needed to learn how to do the band again as you reunited, because one person is missing, or is like who it is has changed and everything like that. And how did you all figure out how to do that? Because that just seems like a real challenge to me, but I'm not in a band, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think at first, it kind of came about, as I said, we were asked to play the bells thing, and we started rehearsing with Donna, and quite quickly I think we realised that there was a new lease of life within us. We managed to find the right person, which was a stroke of luck really, because you could have just hired a session person or something who would have played spot on, but we've never been that kind of group. We've always been a group, we've always been a band, and I think we're not looking to replace Kerry, but looking to have somebody who could fit in and be creative and join in and muck in, and I think we just lucked out with that, and I think because of that we actually found that we were having a really good time, and in some ways a better time than we'd had for years. The band had a new lease of life, a new energy, so it was actually quite easy in a way because it was just enjoyable. And when you've lost a thing as well and it's taken away and you can't take it for granted anymore, it's like anything, isn't it? You really appreciate it, you're humbled by it or something.
Right. I'm also curious because, there is this kind of nostalgia industry that has cropped up of bands that were, popular in the bands I loved in the aughts. It's all bands I loved in the aughts. They're all back.
Totally, me too.
And and while it's been fun to see like Stereolab in concert again and stuff like that, yeah. I'm just curious about like, you all are putting out new music. You're not just reissuing old music. You're not doing the concert where you're playing an album start to finish or anything like that. And I'm curious how maybe it was never a question for you, but certainly you've seen your peers do that. And I'm interested in why you decided to go this other route instead of, producing new music, going on tour with those songs.
Yeah. I don't know. Because we could have done that, I guess. We did have to sit down and think about that. If we want to play some shows, what kind of band do we want to be? Do we want to be a band that turns up and flies to Spain and just plays the greatest hits or something,
Right.
I think it just didn't appeal to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's great that bands can, I haven't managed to catch Stereolab. I love them, and I'd love to have seen Pavement again, and, lots of groups that I loved. But I think I had something to say.
Right.
I had a lot to say. And I think if I didn't have anything to say, then we might have done that. But I had something to say, and I still had... I felt like my songwriting could improve. I was trying to improve it. And I think when you've got nothing to say and you don't want to improve, or you've got nothing to express, then that's fine. But I felt like... And I still feel like I do. Mm-hmm. So making new music was, it's a logistical nightmare for us at the minute to do it, because people have got jobs and kids and all sorts of things. But there's a will there, and it was hard fought to make the record, and it's hard fought to go on tour and leave for 6 weeks and try and do it, and then for people to come back and slot into their ordinary lives with their jobs and their wives and their kids and the school run, all of that. But, we're not on the plane yet, but we're nearly there. We're nearly doing it. I can't believe we're doing it. I still almost can't believe we managed to make the record. It's a big deal for us.
Tracyanne Campbell, thank you so much for joining us this week on Working to talk about your process.
Cheers. Thank you.
Up next, Isaac and I will talk about imposter syndrome, getting back to creative work after a break, and the tricky question of comparison.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Isaac, that was such a fascinating conversation. And as a proud resident of Scotland, I cannot tell you how much I love hearing Scottish accents on our show. One thing I'm curious about, Tracyanne's Ouija accent was noticeable, but I wonder, does she sing with a Scottish accent? I remember a Slate article from 2012, which we will link to in the show notes, that explained why most British singers and others sound American when they sing. But does Tracyanne, do Camera Obscura sound Scottish?
I do think they sound Scottish. I think they sound specifically Glaswegian. I mean, we talked in that interview about the Glasgow sound, the Glasgow scene that they came out of. And of course, the band has long had a close relationship with Bell and Sebastian. Stuart Murdoch, who's the frontman for Bell and Sebastian, produced their first two albums. He and Campbell were in a relationship for a while, etc. So I'm going to say there's a spectrum of Scottishness in vocals, right? So on the very Scottish side of the spectrum, you have Edwyn Collins, particularly when he was singing with the band Orange Juice. I mean, that is a very Scottish accent.
When I first saw you, something stirred within me. You were standing salty in the rain.
On the other side of it, you've got Teenage Fan Club, where the vocals don't sound Scottish at all. In fact, it took me a long time to realize they were even from Scotland.
What you do to me, I know, I can't believe there's something about you get me down on my knees.
In the middle, you have Stuart Murdoch and Tracyanne Campbell, I think. Tracyanne, it's very clearly a Scottish person, even if she doesn't do the full R on the vocals, right? I would also say she's really influenced by Wall of Sound era, Phil Spector produced American music, and also singers from the more psychedelic end of country like Lee Hazelwood. She has this just wonderful, melancholy, slightly breathy voice she's one of the great singers recording right now, I think.
It was fascinating to hear Tracyanne, someone who has had a successful indie music career for 20 years, talking about imposter syndrome in such a down-to-earth way. I really appreciated hearing how she deals with it, but I wonder if you have developed any strategies to overcome the kind of unnecessary self-doubt that so many of us are prone to.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's been a lot of imposter syndrome kind of discourse out there, yes, and a lot of questions about whether it's gendered or not, and, things like that. And I don't know that I experience it as gendered because I feel and have felt imposter syndrome all the time. I don't feel it as much anymore simply because look, I've been doing this for a long time now, right? I graduated from graduate school over a decade ago. I've published 2 books. I've had a couple podcasts. I work very hard at what I do. I know a lot of people in the field. I have a certain understanding of the world and culture that's somewhat hard won. And if I don't know something, I actually know someone I can call up and ask. And so I do think that when I look at my life, I go, okay, in a lot of situations, I actually shouldn't be experiencing imposter syndrome, except this is when I get it. When I interview people. That's when I experience it. Not because I feel like I don't know how to interview. I've done hundreds of interviews at this point. I think I'm okay at it. You know what I mean? But it's because I'm almost never interviewing someone about something that I am an expert on. Because otherwise, why would I talk to them? Do you know what I mean? It's like usually when I'm interviewing someone, it's because they are a master or an expert at something and I want to learn from them, whether it's for research or for this show or whatever. So what I have to keep telling myself in those moments is like, actually, you shouldn't be the expert. It's wrong to be the expert. If you were the expert, you would be being interviewed, because otherwise what happens is you get and I've talked to other people who do interviews about this, you get self-conscious and you start wanting to prove yourself to the subject. And then the interview becomes about your insecurity, not about them. And if there's one thing an interview needs to be about, it's about the person being interviewed, not the person doing the interview.
Amen. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. It was really interesting to hear about all that's involved in getting back on the road when a band hasn't toured in 8 years. And I was really happy to hear that they're enjoying it all the more for having been away for so long. That felt very positive. Now, obviously, there are lots of things about pop and rock music that are different from nonfiction writing or painting, for example. But the idea of having to prepare to return to a key part of your artistic practice, in this case, playing live in front of an audience, that felt very relatable to me. My book comes out in, less than 3 weeks.
And what is it called?
It's called A Place of Our Own, 6 Spaces That Shaped Queer Women's Culture.
And can you pre-order it? Can you pre-order?
Oh gosh, you can pre-order it in so many places.
Do you think our listeners know that pre-orders are actually incredibly important to a book's sales because they indicate to a bookstore that customers are interested in the book, which then causes the bookstore to stock more copies of the book, which causes the book to sell more copies?
They do now. Very well.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Go on.
Well, preparing for that publication date means I haven't been doing the research and writing that I consider my job now. And I've been away from it for so long, even though it's not literally been that long, but it feels like it's been a long time, that I'm kind of wondering if I'll know how to get back to it. And I'm suspecting that you must have gone through something like that when your book, The Method, How the 20th Century Learned to Act, came out. And now you're deep into your next book, of course, but do you have any tips for getting back to a core part, maybe the core part of the creative process after a break?
Well, yeah, after my book, which is now in paperback wherever books are sold, came out, this is actually, I'm going to learn from my mistake here, June. I got too anxious about the juice coming back.
Yeah.
I loved the part in the interview where Tracyanne said, I've been songwriting for a while and I know that when I need to be creative, I can be, and I'm not that worried about it. I wish I had had that confidence after The Method came out. I was in a constant tizzy about, am I ever going to write another book? Am I still creative? Why can't I think straight? Why do I only want to read murder mysteries? Is my brain broken? Is it ever coming back? And there's been 2 other times in my life where that's happened to me. One was after my kid was born because your brain stops working. And the other was after I had COVID. Because I was it took a while for me to sort of come back fully online, shall we say.
Yeah.
That anxiety is not helpful. It doesn't do anything. Nothing comes of that. Artists actually need fallow periods. They need to put something into the world. They need to learn from how the world responds to it. And they also need to have this kind of I'm becoming the next stage of whoever I am part of their lives and experience art, experience their social life, and grow as a person and then use all of that for the next work of art. I wish I had done more of that, honestly. I mean, I don't think my next book is going to be bad or anything, but there's part of me that's I think I would be in a little bit of a better place just creatively and with my gestalt as a human being if I had made my peace with the fact that I was going to be fallow for a while and it was time to just go to museums or read a book for pleasure or walk around for a day and just not worry about running out of ideas. They will always come back unless you're Fran Lebowitz.
Yeah. All right. I appreciated how you and Tracyanne talked about how Camera Obscura have been compared to other groups and artists over the years. I loved her line, stripy t-shirted Belle and Sebastian wannabes. Yeah, classic.
Well, they are wearing stripy t-shirts on the cover of their first 2 albums. So what are you going to do?
Stripy t-shirts are super cool. You mentioned the lineage of Glasgow indie bands, which is, a great reminder that linking bands together is not inherently negative. But I feel like music is particularly prone to this kind of, I guess you could call it contextualizing, where somebody might say, what's this new band like? And the answer might be, well, they're Camera Obscura meets Yola Tango if they once rode in an elevator with the Beths. Maybe that's changed a bit in the age of streaming where there's not so much money on the line. If you want to check out a new band, you can just actually listen to them. But I am curious if you find that kind of comparison or contextualization useful when you hear about a new to you group, and if you think that that is unique to music criticism. I don't know that book critics do that very much, for example.
Yeah, I think this can be a really double-edged sword. I should say I'm very suspicious of it in general. My gut instinct is negative because this really comes out of marketing language. This does not come out of sincere, creative interaction with a work of art. You know, and it particularly comes out of trying to pitch movies in Hollywood. You know, the old adage was you wanted to be able to say, it's like X meets Y. And there was all this news coverage of that being how Hollywood pitches worked. And then I remember this really vividly. All of a sudden, all discussion of movies that lay people were having put it in those terms.
Yeah.
It's Die Hard on a boat, you know? And I just remember that very vividly happening. And I feel like it's that marketing driven corporate shit has taken over everything. Like, I love my local indie bookstore, but when I go there now, you know, the little cards that say that they like the staff
shelf
like
readers, I think. Shelf talkers.
It's a found family locked room cozy mystery for people who love Gideon the Ninth and Murder on the Orient Express. They all fucking read like that, and my soul dies every time. It's like a book is not just tropes. A work of art is not just the checklist you can reduce it to, and it is ultimately anti-art to do that because all you're looking for is, you know, what boxes you can tick. Now, that being said, the other side of it is also true that more and more art comes out just all the time. It's all being made all over the place. And thanks to streaming and social media and everything, we have never been able to access more in our lives. And so we are always looking for people to curate that fire hose for us and to describe it in ways that we can very quickly make a decision about whether we are going to like it or not, whether it's worth our time. And that's what that shorthand does. I think that is valuable. At the same time, if we go too far into the shorthand, we never get to experience anything unfamiliar. We're just getting the same stuff recombined and launched back at us. And I think it's important as human beings to try the unfamiliar and to stretch ourselves and to see what we discover.
Oh, right on. Isaac Butler, yes. We hope you have enjoyed the show. If you have, remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Then you will never miss an episode. And just a reminder that by joining Slate Plus, you'll get ad-free podcasts, extra segments on Slate shows, and you'll never hit a paywall on the Slate site. To learn more, go to slate.com/workingplus.
Thank you to Tracyanne Campbell and to our wonderful producer, Cameron Drews, who makes sure our career is never maudlin. We'll be back next week with Ronald's conversation with a writer you may have heard of. Her name is June Thomas. Until then, get back to work.
We all have that friend who wakes up early to go get everyone McDonald's breakfast, while the rest of us sleep in. This is your sign to thank them. And if you're that friend, this is us saying thank you.
Just a friendly reminder that right now, get any size iced coffee before 11 a.m. for just 99 cents. And a satisfying sausage McMuffin with egg is just $2.79. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.